Hello race fans, Keith Collantine here, looking back on one of the biggest talking points from the Chinese Grand Prix, where, for the third time in as many races, Ferrari used team orders to aid Sebastian Vettel at the expense of his teammate Charles Leclerc. Now, team orders is always an emotive subject, and Ferrari's decision to use them has prompted a lot of debate, not least on racefans.net. But this isn't just a story about Ferrari, it also reflects on Vettel in a way which is troubling for the four-time world champion, for one reason that's been somewhat overlooked. That is that had it not been for Ferrari's team orders, in all three races so far this year, it's very unlikely that Vettel would have led Leclerc home in any of them. Let's take a look back on those three races. At the last round in China, Leclerc got ahead of Vettel at the start, and had the race run its course without Ferrari interfering, he probably would have stayed there because he would have been the lead driver on track, he would have had the right to pit first, and therefore it's doubtful Vettel would have had the opportunity to jump ahead through the pits, and as we could see, Vettel wasn't able to pass him on the track. 2 weeks earlier in Bahrain, Leclerc was indisputably the quicker of the two drivers. He cruised up behind Vettel and was told by Ferrari to wait behind him for 2 laps. Now, we all saw Leclerc thought better of that and slipped by less than a lap later. He had that much of a pace advantage. And had he not had a short circuit in his power unit later on in the race, which demoted him to 3rd, Leclerc would definitely have won. Meanwhile, Vettel had a spin and ended up down in 5th. And Ferrari also used team orders at the season opening race in Australia. Leclerc was catching Vettel towards the end of the race. Vettel had pitted a lot earlier for tyres and they were getting quite worn towards the end, so Leclerc was catching him very quickly. With about 10 laps to go, Ferrari told their drivers to hold position. If you look at what Leclerc then did based on his lap times, he dropped quite a way back from Vettel and on the last lap absolutely let rip. Took almost 4 seconds out of his teammate, leaving nobody in any doubt that the reason he finished behind Vettel wasn't because he couldn't overtake him, but because he'd been told not to. It's quite easy to see what consequence Ferrari's Vettel first policy has had for Leclerc's season. He was 5th when he should have been 4th in Australia, and he was 5th again when he should have been 3rd in China, and he should be 3rd in the championship. That would put him immediately behind the 2 Mercedes drivers. As it is, because of Ferrari's decisions, the closest rival to one of the Mercedes is Max Verstappen's Red Bull, and of course Leclerc has fallen behind Vettel in the point standings. It's pretty clear that if Ferrari hadn't decided to favour Leclerc's teammate in every race so far, Leclerc would be the closest threat in the championship to the Mercedes drivers. Ferrari have some good reasons for deciding to back Vettel. After all, he is a 4-time world champion, and on paper, up against a driver who's only in his 2nd year of the championship, it's quite reasonable for them to want to put their efforts behind him. But while that is a good argument in simple statistical terms at the start of a new season, it's clear Leclerc has been the superior driver so far. Therefore, Ferrari's decision to favour Vettel because he's more competitive has actually become a self-fulfilling prophecy. He's only ahead of Leclerc in the championship because Ferrari believe he should be. If Vettel is going to have any hope of beating Lewis Hamilton to this year's World Championship, he has to prove he can beat Leclerc first, and he hasn't done that yet. For more Formula 1 analysis and comment, follow at racefans.net on Twitter and on Facebook. And don't forget to hit subscribe in the top right now so you don't miss our next video on YouTube.